Hi, my name is Kate McMahon, and thank you for joining us today for Profile. I'm very excited to introduce you to Kim Mead Walters.
Thank you, Kate.
Kim, thanks for being here today.
We're so pleased to be here.
Yes, yes. Now, your role is Executive Director and founder of Sharing Kindness here on the Cape. Can you share with us what experience led you to be a founder of Sharing Kindness?
I'm happy to do that. So we'll just jump right in.
Yes.
I would go back to 1990. I was halfway through medical school, and my younger brother, Chris, became a homicide victim. And I was well-resourced. I was in the medical field. I looked for support, and there literally was none. And so, like so many bereaved young adults, I just pushed forward with my unaddressed grief. And in 2016, 25 years into my career as a family physician, I came back here to the Cape to work. This is also where I grew up. We were raising 4 children, and the youngest of our 4 children, Jeremy, died from suicide. And again, I was devastated. And I was so impacted by watching my 3 surviving children, all in their early 20s, the same age that I was when I lost my brother unexpectedly and traumatically to a stigmatized death. And there was still no trauma-informed, grief-sensitive professional support available to them. The difference at this point was that I knew it existed, it just wasn't here in our community.
Okay, local.
And it wasn't local at all. And so over the following 2 years, Sharing Kindness was born. And it was born to address the gaps, certainly in grief support, but also in suicide awareness, because suicide is the second leading cause of death for our young people ages 10 to 24. And we wanted to address that gap in our community also.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
And those numbers are quite astounding to
They
me
are.
too.
They
Quite
are.
astounding. So that makes it even more important work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I was very taken by a sentence that I read on your website, and I'm hoping that you can take a deeper delve into that for me. And it is, you want to inspire courageous conversation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. Well-informed, courageous conversation. In 2017, we held the first suicide awareness walk for the Cape and Islands. And at that walk, which in full disclosure, in my heart, in my mind, was Jeremy's walk, I thought maybe 50 or 75 people would come. And hundreds of people came. And it was because we offered a safe space for them to say their person's name, for them to have a courageous conversation. And that was literally May of 2017, the day that the seed for Sharing Kindness was planted, seeing the depth of the pain and what so many of our community members had been carrying, and how they wanted it to be different for other families, what they would have wanted themselves. And so we feel so strongly at Sharing Kindness about having these conversations about grief and loss and suicide and homicide, deaths or struggles with a substance use disorder. We can companion each other, we can partner each other on these journeys, and it's better for all of us when we do. So we really strive to start those conversations across the Cape and Islands.
Yes, And I'm sure you find that many people don't know how to start that conversation.
Exactly. And that's why we often, when we're having conversations like the one you and I are having, slide in informed, because we, as an organization, are out in the community. We are doing Grief 101 presentations at schools and at libraries. And you've covered that
Yes.
with Kathleen, our Director of Clinical and Community Services. We do mental health presentations. For instance, in honor of Black History Month, we've done presentations on the impact of racism on mental health. Again, really important conversations to have
Yes.
in our community.
Yes.
We do documentaries and panel discussions about anxiety, particularly for teens. There's a great documentary called Angst that we use. And we bring the conversation to the community. Each May we have a suicide awareness walk. It's the big fundraiser for our organization that enables us to continue doing this programming out in the community. And that's another way to raise awareness and help inform people about the importance of these conversations. I often share that one of my favorite banners at the walk is one we created, and it has many messages from the community written on it in Sharpie. And it says, let's talk about the S word, because so many of us were raised to not talk about suicide. It's been disproven time and time again, but one of those myths is if you mention the word suicide, you will make somebody suicidal. Disproven time and time again. Let's talk about the S word.
Yes, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So that really helps us as a lead in. You and I were talking earlier about, let's just call it focus, that there's three primary focuses of sharing kindness. And you touched a little bit on just now on suicide awareness. Is there anything in particular outside of the walk that you all do that you feel is very powerful for those of us on the Cape and the islands?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for asking. For suicide awareness encompasses suicide prevention. Some people aren't aware of the term postvention, but that's a way of supporting families and individuals who have experienced a death of a family member or friend to suicide. And we do both of those. So for suicide prevention, the program we're most excited about right now is one called Hope Squad. This is an evidence-based, so it's been proven to decrease suicide risk, an evidence-based suicide prevention program for schools. And so at Sharing Kindness, we support currently Hope Squad in 12 schools across the Cape.
Wow.
I know, it's
That's
so...
a large percentage.
It is, it is, and it will probably grow by 4 more schools this year.
Wonderful.
Hope Squad is student-driven but advisor-overseen. And so currently, among those 12 schools, we have 64 trained advisors, and these advisors are in different roles across the school campuses. So we have librarians and guidance counselors and history teachers and coachers. We have a plumbing instructor at Cape Cod Tech. So really diverse advisors and equally diverse student members. And each of those student members is nominated by their peers and as being trustworthy, as being really having empathy and being good listeners. And so those students become trained in what to look for if a peer is struggling. This is critical because AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, tells us that teens with suicidal ideation, about half the time they don't disclose their suicidal ideation, but the other 50% of the time, 7 times out of 10, they tell a peer. And so we are equipping those peers to be a connection, a bridge to a trusted adult. And in Hope Squad schools, 95% of the student body says that they know how and where to get support for a struggling peer. Given that they're going to be the ones likely who hear the message first or see the changes first, that is amazing.
That is very powerful.
Super powerful. And so we're so excited. So what that translates to here on the Cape is 64 trained advisors, just over 400 trained Hope Squad student members, and the impact, the outreach is to more than 7,000 of our students on Cape Cod. This is school-wide outreach. So that is pretty impressive, and we're so excited to be associated with that program. The other piece is postvention or suicide loss survivor peer grief groups. And that's really, those were the first peer grief groups we offered at Sharing Kindness. Although now we currently have 16 groups outside of schools, and they're offered to our community members across the lifespan.
One thing that just really touched me is the percentage of students who now know who can help them help one of their peers.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's amazing. And that's really important too for students. I mean, they're young, they're inexperienced. You know, for them to now understand that there is a way that they can truly make a difference.
Right.
Is phenomenal.
Exactly. That's a big part of our message, because historically, what AFSP has shared with us and what we know anecdotally is that students, peers, they don't want to get their friends in trouble. So they, or the friend would say, I'm going to tell you this, but don't tell anybody. And they wouldn't. And so by providing this information and education, we are making a difference. We know that we're making a difference here on the Cape.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's got to keep you motivated.
It sure does.
And your board.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And your peers.
All yes.
Yes. Additionally, and I guess there's a real nice segue there from the suicide awareness to community education. And are there specific programs there that maybe are new or in development or are proven that you want to talk about?
So we do, again, we'd love to partner with other community nonprofits. And so we've done that in the past as a way looking for points of connection around programming. And so we've done that with the Alzheimer's Family Resource Center on Cape. Yes, right? Yeah. We've done that with Independence House. We're working on a program right now with Children's Cove. There are lots of organizations where courageous conversation is appropriate and where we have points of connection, and we're bringing those to the community. We also, and I think maybe I'll segue to the third focus we have, which is grief support across the lifespan. And so when we started doing this group, again, we had other partners like the VNA, Maternal Child Health group, reach out to us and say, we know you're doing grief groups. We are sending folks who've experienced perinatal loss. So that's the loss of a pregnancy, a stillbirth, an early infant loss, off Cape because there are no services here on Cape. So here's another gap in service that often we're not talking about.
Yes.
And so that's now something that we were able to work together on and establish a perinatal loss group here on Cape. And we've had the same ask on Nantucket, and so we're in process of establishing that there. Right across to our family programs, we have them at our center in Harwich, but we're now also offering a family group virtually, which we're very excited about. A family from Truro and Nantucket and Bourne could all attend the same virtually. So again, we're all about improving access to our clinicians and to our programs. We have young adult programs for those 18 to 25, and it doesn't matter, and this is true for all of our programs, when they experienced the loss, but particularly with children and youth, you process that death differently, for instance, when you're a teen than when you're a young adult. And so we want to acknowledge that, and it, we've had people say, well, my dad died when I was 18, but I'm 25 now, and you're welcome. It doesn't matter that it was 7 years ago, because you're going to process your loss, your death, that you experienced differently.
Differently, yeah. Just to go back for a second,
Sure.
with the collaborations with the other nonprofits, that's awesome, because I'm assuming in the long run that's going to allow Sharing Kindness to reach even more people that need the education and the support.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's a win-win,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're working with these established community partners. We were formed in 2018 as a 501c3, so we're 6 years old, still on the young side compared to some of our other community partners. And to be able to work with them, we can learn a lot from them.
Yes.
We can, discover so many points of connection, but they also, yes, help us spread our message.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Now, we did talk a little bit earlier about Healing House. Can we talk more about that?
Oh, yes. This will be a permanent home where folks who need companioning on their grief journey are welcomed at the door with hospitality, with kindness, where we can create the environment that I know I wish my family had, where there's access to all sorts of healing modalities, like drumming or mindfulness, or where there's access to trauma-informed, clinician-led grief support, and where there's access to peers who can companion anybody on this journey. I know for me, one of the most important parts of my healing was to see bereaved parents who had experienced a death similar to mine, and to know that they had survived. And not only had they survived, but they were thriving. That I didn't know, I couldn't feel that it was possible for me early on,
Yes.
but it was really important for me to see that. It instilled hope. And that's what we want to do at the Healing House.
Wonderful mission for
Thank
the
you.
Healing House. I'm sure there's members in our audience that are touched by your work, impressed by your work, learning from your work. My conversations with you and your team, I have learned so much. Many of us, don't know where to start. So I'm curious, if people want to get involved with Sharing Kindness, are there specific things that you all could use help with in spreading your message?
Absolutely. So I would encourage anybody to go to our website, which is sharingkindness.org, or to email myself, that's Kim at Sharing Kindness, or our Director of Clinical and Community Services, Kathleen at Sharing Kindness. On the website, please feel free to send us a message. We look for partners with volunteers, as we mentioned earlier, with providing services or providing materials, because our grief groups, for instance, our children's groups, need lots of materials. They do a lot of activities to remember their person. We are always looking for folks that we call our hospitality team to welcome people at our center when they're coming for programs. And we're always looking for people out in the community who might want to help us by hosting a fundraiser. We call them patio parties. It's an hour or two to talk about the mission and see if anybody, if our work speaks to them and they would like to partner.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
So lots of opportunities.
Lots of opportunities.
And again, if people want to get in touch and learn more, they can reach you directly at your email address, kim@sharingkindness.org, or Kathleen, the Director of Clinical and Community Relations, Kathleen at sharingkindness.org.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I know I've learned a lot today, and I'm sure our audience has as well. So the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today for Profile. Until next time, I'm Kate McMahon.